la la.
Oh, we are
look how
going.
high up there we're going. All right.
Hello. Welcome back to, well, still no name, but podcast number 3.
3. We're on 3. So, welcome to the shop. We're glad y'all are here with us, and we're just going to chit-chat again, do another video, just chit-chatting some things in my life, and one of the most important pieces of my life we'll talk about tonight, one of the real growing experiences and fun experiences, and
Forwarded
also
you into the man you are today.
Yeah, I still actually use a lot of what I learned from that time in my life. So, it was fun too, and interesting, and something, once again, because of the type of life I've had, I got to do something that not many people have had the chance to do.
Quite a lot of experiences, I would say.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk to you about your days fighting forest fires.
Wildland forest firefighter.
Yes.
Yep. 11 years of fighting fires here in the Northwest.
Now, when did you start doing that?
So I started summer of 1977, and I was washing cars for a car dealership. I was in between my second and third year of college. And I was washing cars in Olympia for the company my dad was working for when he retired from the military. He worked for a car dealership for a little while. Yeah, he loved cars. And, so he went to work for a dealership, and then he realized it wasn't his thing. So summer of 77, and it was a very hot, dry summer that year. And I was washing cars, and out of the dealership came one of the women who worked up in the offices, kind of one of the managers, and she's walking towards me, and I'm washing clean cars because at a car lot,
Oh, I know.
you did.
Yeah.
Actually, you did that too. I forgot. Yeah, washing clean cars. And then when I got done with the 100 cars that were done that I just washed, I went to my boss. So what do I do now? And he goes, go back to the front and start washing again. So I was washing clean cars, and I see this woman walking towards me, and I knew it was going to be either I'm not working here anymore or it's going to be something weird. And she walked up and asked me if I'd be interested in fighting fires, that her son was on a fire crew, a 20-man, and they were looking for another couple crewmen. And so she gave me a phone number, and I talked to my parents that night, and gave the crew foreman a call and drove down to this place called Lewis and Clark State Park. There's a 20-man fire barracks. It's south of Olympia, about 40 miles, and then towards the Cascades a bit, and middle of nowhere. Pulled into this area, and there was this long barracks, and there was no one there except this woman who was in the kitchen cooking. And but it was a bunkhouse. There were more than 20 bunks in there. I think there were 28 bunks in there total. They're in quads, twos. There were 4 closets at the end of each one, 2 bunks, and we called them quads. The assistant foreman called them those bay areas.
Yeah,
Bay Area. And so he'd come through every morning, clean up them bay areas. My first few days, I was like, I don't even know what he's saying. What is he saying? Because he just walked through laughing and telling us to clean up. And so I drove out there, and I wound up interviewing. I sat there in my car waiting for somebody to show up. They told me they'd be there at a certain time. And then in comes these 2 vans, bright red vans, with 10 guys in each van, and a big, giant red equipment truck, and they pulled in, and these guys all bailed out and started doing tasks like it was going out of style. And one of the bosses came over and asked me if I was the guy who was supposed to interview, and went in and interviewed, and next thing I knew, I'm on a 20-man fire crew, and he told me to report to the barracks the next day at I think I had to be there by 9.
That's not bad.
So we start our shifts at 10, go to 6:30, and something about saving overtime.
Yes.
So, and so my first day, I got to the barracks. I had my hiking boots on, which I then that day found out very quickly from the assistant foreman. No, you need 10-inch high safety boots, steel-toed, and don't come back without them. And so I went and got steel-toed shoes, and I lived in a barracks for basically 4 years during the fire seasons with 20 other guys.
How long do those seasons go for?
Usually we'd get in on the 20-man we'd get in late May and stay till mid September. Sometimes we'd go till October.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you'd be in there for months, and you were on the road a lot. You were out fighting fires.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, living with 20 guys, and the first night was a little stressful because I didn't know anybody.
Yeah, of course.
Even the son of the gal who told me about the job, I didn't know him.
Right.
He and I later.
I know your mom.
He and I later became roommates in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so yeah, living with 20 guys, and we had a woman cook that year named Becky, and after that, for the next 3 years on that crew, we had a guy that was a cook, Stan. And,
yes, Stan.
Yes, Stan, the happy Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And just big, enormous man, joyful, fun guy with a quick temper, and had a cook's temper. And so, and so my first day of work, we actually went out and dug trail, which is something fire crews do a lot of. You dig 18-inch wide down to mineral soil, no roots, fire trail, pulling everything away from the side that the fire's on. And so we went out and did that, and I was exhausted, and I didn't know, because nobody told me, you were supposed to make your lunch there before you leave. The cook would put out all this lunch stuff, so I had no lunch the first day, and I was starving. Got back, and we had a really nice dinner, so we ate pretty good as a fire crew. So
I imagine you learned your lesson and made a lunch the second day.
I did pick that up really quick. Oh, okay, there's lunch food out. And so, but by the time I got there, my first full day of work, they'd already had breakfast and they were out working on stuff. So,
oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So I was assigned to the job of second chainsaw. We had a lead chainsaw man, Gerald. He was good, man. Oh, man, he was good. He was probably one of the best chainsaw people that I've known on Fireline. No fear. He'd tip over big ones. He would cut through. Man, that guy was just good. Mm-hmm. And years later that year, I was actually on a fire, and Gerald wasn't there, and they needed a saw man, and I was second saw. So
yeah.
I grabbed his saw because mine was hard to start. I wasn't really a good saw man as far as keeping the motor running and, keeping it. So I picked up Jerry's, grabbed his. It was always sharper than mine too. And I could not get that thing going for the life of me. And I got chewed out by the foreman. Why didn't you choose your own saw? Well, because Jerry's always runs better than mine. It's always sharper than mine. And that was not a good excuse for.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So back to they called the vans crummies. Back to the crummy, I went, got my saw. And guess what? It started on like the second pull.
Of course, naturally.
And then ran all day. So living with 20 guys in a barracks for.
So how was the life in the barracks of a 20-man fire crew?
Yeah. So you become fast friends pretty quick. And in my first season, we only stayed as a 20-man for the first 3 weeks. And then it was so dry that season, they decided they needed 2 10-man crews stationed in eastern Washington. So they broke our 20-man up into 2 10-mans and put 1 10-man at Deer Park and 1 10-man just outside of Spokane. I was in the one just outside of Spokane. And we would come together when there'd be big fires. We would come together and be a 20 again. But and then they flew us every weekend home when we weren't on a fire, and then we would be 20 going home and then 20 coming back, and then different directions. And it was, you got to know each other really well. After my first season, I could tell on the first night who's going to be a good firefighter and who you're going to put in the middle of the line.
Yeah.
That's where you put your best on the tail end and on the front. And you put these other guys in the middle and kind of keep them out of trouble. And you could tell on the first night, I could usually tell if somebody's going to be. You would have been a good firefighter. You would have been. It's something that different personalities handle it better than others.
Yeah, just like another job.
Yeah.
Any other job.
Yeah,
people
that's true. Yeah,
are good at some jobs and not good
at others. Yeah. That's a pretty physical job. So.
Well, do you remember your first fire that you ever went on?
So I was back then. We did what's that?
Like you say, you went on a fire, go on a fire, fought a fire.
Yeah, fought a fire. Got dispatched.
Yeah,
Elma. We were on Alaska 30 was our boss's radio call on Alaska 30. And, the musical words to a firefighter are your call sign and the words 210. that means you are being dispatched to a fire. 210. If you got a 211, that means you're being dispatched to a smoke. And, those could be, somebody's got a burn barrel going in their backyard.
Yeah.
Smoldering garbage. But 210. So we were during fire school. It's every year's fire school for the first 2 weeks and conditioning. And our bosses used to have us leave the barracks in the morning, full gear, full boots, long sleeves, gear, helmets, and run a mile down the road. And they would pick us up in the crummies, the vans, down the road. And at the end of the day during training, they would drop us off a mile down the road.
Meet
but
you
they
at
didn't
camp.
care. They didn't care how long it took you to get
really?
back. No. But dinner was served.
Yeah. With or without you.
With or without you. So, and so we pretty much jogged our way back. But in the mornings, that first mile run was hard to get there because they would leave you. We left people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were told if you don't make it to the vans and we leave, and you better not be in the barracks when we get back.
Really?
Yeah, you were done.
Yikes.
And so I never had anybody during my first year have that happen to them. So we did have one guy that was off doing something, and we got dispatched to a fire, and he didn't get to go with the 20 man. But so my first fire, actually, back then we did slash burns. After a logging operation was done, they would light it on fire and burn off all the slash. It was called slash burns. And so we did 2 of those, and so they're kind of like practice for firefighters. You can get out there, and they don't do it anymore, which is kind of a shame because it leaves the fire crews, if you're new and you haven't got any experience on a fire line, those were really good to get to experience the heat. They never stay within their boundaries, so you got to fight fires. And but we got dispatched to Spokane when they broke us apart into 2 10-mans, and we were only in Spokane for a day or 2, and we got on Alaska 210, and off we went, and we got out to this countryside north of Spokane. It was pine forest with a lot of hay fields, and the hay fields were going great guns.
Oh, yeah.
And the pine was really roaring. And I remember we were lining out because you get ready, you got all your tools, and you get ready to go. And I was standing next to a guy named Dan, and he always had a chew in, so his lower lip was always sticking out. And there was this pine tree, these pines in front of us were on this dirt road, and these pine trees in front of us are starting to crackle. And I remember Dan going, "That tree gonna crown out," which is, I'd never experienced that before. That's literally a tree getting so hot and so dry that it instantaneously just explodes.
Really?
Woof, the whole tree. Yeah, just woof. Just, man, massive amounts of energy. And yes.
He called it?
He did. Oh, boy. Yeah, a whole clump of pine trees, probably 40, 50 feet tall. Just woof. And he had been on the fire crew for probably 2 or 3 years before that, so he knew what it was. But yeah, I remember him spitting out some chew. "Them trees gonna crown out." Woof. And I saw a lot of them that from then on, they didn't surprise me because you could actually hear the noise and you know it's coming.
Yeah.
And turn away because there's a lot of energy coming off of them. And so it was crazy because there were farmers running around with their tractors, and there was fire going all over the place. And when you're new on a fire line, after you've been on a few, it starts making sense. A lot of it, there's a lot of normal to it.
Yeah.
And patterns that you can get into. But boy, your first few, it's like, what on earth is going on? There were farmers with tractors trying to dig trail, and it was crazy. And we started digging trail. And we would come across a fire trail going
a different way.
And be like, what is this mess? And there were these canyons that were probably 50 feet deep, rock walls that we were also having to deal with. And this fire ran pretty good. It probably got up to 50, 60 acres before we got a handle on it. And that was my first real fire experience. And one of the interesting things that happened on that one is me and Dan wound up out on one of these canyon cliff walls, and there's fire pretty much kind of all around us, and we've lost the crew. It's just been so insane, and because there are trails going every which way. It's just, if you get spread out, it was chaos. And out of the smoke comes the assistant foreman, Tamble, chews us out good.
Yep.
Leads us through the smoke where the crew's at, and we're both like, "Thanks, Tamble." Yeah, you'd get separated like that, though, from time to time, and it'd get crazy. But for the most part, you stay with your crew. And so that was my first real fire experience. We were exhausted by the end of that day, and we were initial attack, so we very rarely stayed in the mop-up phases. They would bring in other crews to do the mop-ups of these bigger ones. And so, yeah, that was my first real fire. And that summer, we went to 29 fires.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my busiest season ever.
I was going to say, what would be a average or normal?
Well, for a 20-man, the average year probably 5 to 7.
Oh, geez.
I had 1 year, only 3, but 5 to 7. 79, we probably went to 12 or 13 of them that year, and that was a hot year. And then when I moved to a 10-man crew, they did away with the 20s. I moved to a 10-man crew, and we would go to a lot of slash burns that got out of control because we were kind of a local 10-man. Mm-hmm. And then when I spent the last 6 years on an initial attack engine as the crew leader and crew foreman of an initial attack engine, and we would, I'd go to 18, 19 fires a year.
Wow.
Some of them just, small. Somebody's little trash can fire spread out and got 10 feet, and some of them very, very big. Yeah.
So 11 years, do you have one fire that just stands out that's like, that was the most exciting, scary, fun, terrifying?
Yeah.
Just one that above all of them, just one that sticks out?
There's a few that I think about a lot because they were really something to experience. But I read years ago this sci-fi about this guy who invented something and where he could touch you and give you a experience of his.
Yeah. Like
you were really there. And I've thought about this fire in 1977 that we were on. That was the year we were busted into 2 10-man fire crews, took our 20 and busted into 2 10s. And we were on a Friday for us, and we'd work the Friday day, and then they would fly us home to Olympia for the weekend. And so we got to the Deer Park Airport. We'd worked our day. We had heard on the radios that there was a fire burning up in the Okanagan, and which is Pine Forest, north central Washington. And we got on the plane. We're like, ooh, going home.
Weekend.
We made it almost, we could see the column.
All right.
Yeah, we were flying west, and we could see it off to the north. And we knew it was big. And we got just about to the Cascades, and the plane banked. We were like, wow. We were ready for a weekend. We had none of our gear.
Oh, yeah.
It was all in the vans back at the airport because we were flying back there in 2 days.
Yeah.
And so we had none of our gear, and they banked us, and we landed at the Omak airport. And we got onto a bus. They had a school bus out there for us, and we got onto this school bus. And I'd been on probably 10 or 12 fires, good ones, running fires. So I was starting to feel the
experience.
Yeah, and this guy gets on the bus, and he says, he's there to brief us. Okay, we're going to get you out we need to throw you on the fire line right away. We've got equipment for you. We were literally in our street clothes. We were flying home. Yeah.
Yeah.
No helmets, no canteens, no nothing, no tools, nothing. And then he says, and I can still hear him, I can still see him, and I can see my foreman, whose name was Art. I can see his reaction. And the guy says, we've been on this thing for 2 days now. We got a 20-man missing. I'm not going to lie to you guys. We got a 20-man missing right now. We have 1 confirmed dead firefighter.
Ooh.
And he looks at us and he says, boys, I've been doing this a long time. This is the meanest fire I've ever seen.
Wow.
And here we go in street clothes.
Yeah.
They give us helmets with no canteens, no water, and they take us out. And I can still see they parked us on this dirt area that they'd cleared out with bulldozers. And here is a bulldozer trail run through the woods, and it's 2 bulldozers wide where they could. Mm-hmm. So about 30 feet wide. And they told us to stretch, they told our foreman to stretch us out on this, just pine. This thing was just roaring. And they stretched us out, told us to stretch out our 20-man, because we had the whole 20 together, until we made contact with the crew on the other side.
Yeah.
We were stretched so thin, Christopher, I couldn't see anybody to my left or my right.
Jeez.
We were stretched that thin. And these pine trees were probably ponderosa pine. They were probably 100 feet tall, and the flames above them were probably another 100 feet. And it's coming at us, and we're just 20 young guys standing on a 30-foot wide dirt trail.
Yeah.
No water, no hoses, no nothing.
Other people's
borrowed tools, borrowed helmets, and man, this thing was just coming, and it was, we were flying home at the end of the day. It was turning evening, which is to your advantage on a fire. Things kind of die down after about 2, 3 in the morning. If humidity gets good, things kind of die down. But fire that size is also generating its own wind, so it was roaring. The fire was roaring, and back then you couldn't light a backfire, which is you light the fire. You got the fire coming at you. You light here, and the idea is that they pull each other together.
Yeah.
And then you've got what's called good black between you and the fire. We weren't allowed to do that at that time. I think it was had to have governor's approval to light a backfire, and so we lit a backfire.
Yeah. Do what you got to do.
There was no way.
It's one of those ask for forgiveness, not
forgiveness later. We did call it a burnout. Burnouts were allowed. Oh, burnout is where you've got the fire here, and there's a little bit of, you got the fire line here, and you got a trail, you got the fire, and there's a little bit left in here. Mm-hmm. We were allowed to burn out, but we weren't allowed to backfire, and so it's a dangerous strategy because it could flip on you.
Yeah.
And now you got fire right on your line, and you're in trouble. That thing worked like a dream. But for about, I'd say we lit that backfire probably 8 or 9 at night. For the next probably 6 hours, it was running and gunning.
Yeah.
Fire everywhere, fire jumping across our line because you got showers of sparks. And we would coalesce. I couldn't see, but if I had a spot fire break out behind me, I'd start yelling, and crewmen would come from either direction, and or I'd hear somebody yelling, and I'd run. And man, that night, I don't know how many spot fires we fought, but it was a running battle for probably 6 hours straight, and just this massive thing in front of you, and you're just these young men, kids, really.
What, 19, 20,
19, 20. Yeah, 21 years old. And, even among the most experienced firefighter out there, not a lot. Mm-hmm. And we knew that there was a 20-man missing, which they finally found him. Mm-hmm. They were okay. One guy dead, and he got caught in it. It blew up on him. Basically, an area like the crown out. Mm-hmm. Woof. An area can do that too. 5 acres at a pop can just go woof.
Right.
He got stuck in one of those, and interestingly enough, he made it to a creek. They found him in a creek, so he did make it somewhere where he had a shot. But so one of the coolest moments of that night, though, was just, for one thing, it was terrifying, but at the same time, it was exhilarating, and it was like, there were times when I remember standing in front of this thing with my shovel, just, and come on,
what you got?
I could hear other guys screaming and yelling, and it was just. So finally. The backfire had finally worked, and it had and it was 3, 4 in the morning. It had sort of bedded down. Still big fire, still a lot of heat, but it had kind of bedded down, and that was our first real. And I remember sitting on a stump, and I still couldn't see anybody to my left or my right. We were just spread way thin. 20 guys probably stretched, I don't know how far, just way thin. And but it had calmed down enough that I finally took my first break, and we were only 18 guys because we sent 2 back to Spokane on the plane to get our vans and come back. So they got there right about then. Yeah, it must have been a little before then, because one of them was a harmonica player, and it was finally bedded down. And I mean, you are just the adrenaline is now flushed out of you, and so you're just exhausted. But at the same time, you knew we'd held our line, and we didn't give an inch that night. And I've given more than a few inches since then on fires. Mm-hmm. That night we did not give an inch. And you could hear the radios when they'd somebody'd key a microphone, somebody's going to be on the radio, and I heard a click of, and here it is, just this almost peaceful, because we've now basically won. and I hear a harmonica piece, and it is the first part of the song "School" by Supertramp, and it is a wailing, sad harmonica piece, and it's called "School." And I just remember sitting on that stump and hearing that come through the radio and just thinking, "School." We have done it. Really cool thing happened too when we got back to fire camp. We had not ever been to the fire camp. When they got us to the fire camp the next day, we'd been out already by that time on the line, probably probably close to 20 hours.
Gee.
And got us into fire camp and headed over for the kitchen trucks, and you're kind of merging with other crews, all headed for the kitchen truck, and we're all dragging. Everybody's dragging, and you're black. You're just covered in it and soot, and your hair's like straw, and your noses are plugged up. Everybody's coughing, and as you're merging, everybody's, what crew are you with? And as soon as we said we were Lewis and Clark 20, heads turned toward us. It was a cool moment. You guys held last night. Only place on that entire fire that held that night.
Wow.
And I don't even know how we did it.
Yeah.
I really just, so if I could give somebody that night was just one of those,
Wow.
You against nature, and 20 guys against nature, and really, really knowing how fire works now after all those years that I did it. Got some lucky breaks that night, and I had good leadership, made a difference. And plus I had 20 guys that knew I could count on.
Yeah.
And they knew they could count on me. So it was a heck of a night, though. There's lots of fire stories that are funny, though, that I can tell you about. Some other there's just goofy stuff that happens on fires.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
What about fire camps? How exactly were there?
Yeah,
Was it just like actual camping, or just like tents and?
Yep, that big red equipment truck I told you about that came into the barracks the first day, that's full of camping equipment and these big giant tents and a kitchen fly, a full kitchen.
Marshmallows, chocolate.
S'mores.
Yeah.
We never did do that. I do have a story about that, though. I have cooked marshmallows on forest fires. We've done it. And I knew one guy one time that used to carry foil, and he would take a rock, and if he'd find grouse, he'd hit him with a rock.
Yeah.
Good shot. Yeah, he'd hit him in the head, and then he'd pop the breast, wrap it up in his foil, and put it near a hot spot.
Oh,
and he would go, don't mop this one up. He'd cook his grouse breast. And but fire camps were interesting places. I was in a fire camp one time where there were 1,000 people in the camp, and 800 of them were inmates.
Really?
From the prison system. Mm-hmm. And those guys were like the cavalry at times. I mean, you'd have my guys and me making overtime, making pretty good money on fires, and these guys working for basically 50 cents an hour, same risk level. Mm-hmm. And they were, boy, I believed in them after the first couple of fires I was on with them. And so fire camps were a blend of inmates and people who were not inmates, but we were all kind of prisoners here. Mm-hmm. And there's these kitchen trailers. So it's an entire semi, the trailer, and there's some kitchens in them. Our fire crew, we had our own kitchen and a kitchen fly. It had cupboards, a gas stove, and ovens. And we would set that entire fire camp up. It was actually part of fire camp competition or fire school competition.
Yeah.
We would have trail digging competition, crew to crew, head to head against other crews. We would have pump. Who can get the pump out of the box set up, pumping water fastest, and all these different competitions. But setting up your fire camp was one of the competitions. And the hilarious thing was we rarely had to set up the entire fire camp, because usually when we get to a big fire that was an overnight event, they'd already have a kitchen crew there, so we didn't need our kitchen. But but these big giant tents, and we had cots and sleeping bags. Although don't ask me why, it was always so darn hot. Mm-hmm. And summertime and dry areas, and so fire camps. There were things that you would do every day. Your shift would start. You'd be on the fire line by 6 a.m. at the latest, and go till 6 p.m, and then be relieved by another crew. And but you'd go first thing to the plans shack, which is another trailer where the fire boss is, and there would be a bulletin board there, and you could read the fire weather predictions for that day or that night, and you could read the status of the fire, what crews were here, what crews had left already, what resources were coming in. Always the local newspapers, you can read, at least hear what some news is. It's before the internet and cell phones.
Yeah.
So you were out there, and my parents would not know where I was. And for 10 of the seasons, your mom didn't know where I was. I'd be dispatched and gone. And unless I got to a payphone somewhere, there was no reaching out. And so
you guys didn't write letters to each other?
No, when I was on the line, no. I think I might have sent her a postcard or two.
Okay.
But yeah, for the most part, you just find get near a payphone, and we'd get sent into town usually at least one night on a fire. They'd send you into town, relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And I would always make a call to my parents and a call to Mom. So they'd know where I was. And then on those years where you're running from fire to fire to fire, you'd be like, I'm in the Okanagan. I'm north of Spokane.
Yeah.
We're up in Coeur d'Alene. And that's the way it ran. So fire camps were really interesting, though. They're quiet places because there's day shifts and night shifts, and so you stay pretty quiet because there's always somebody sleeping. Mm-hmm. And the food was always great.
I was going to ask how the food was.
Gosh, yeah. You know, for one thing, you were hungry.
Yeah,
a lot of energy going on. Yeah,
hungry.
Yeah, so they could have cooked. They could have cooked almost anything, and we'd have been like, "This is the best food ever." That was another thing we carried in our kitchen truck. Was in our equipment truck was a 55-gallon drum full of sea rations in case we wound up on a fire without a. But yeah, you could actually set. You knew how many days you'd been there by what was being served that night, because 4 different dinners, and first night was always steak, so 4 nights later steak again.
Yeah.
So I've had steak 3 times on this fire. I've been here a long time.
Yeah.
And steaks usually cover in the plate. Usually you had a plate with a steak and then whatever else they were serving us, and they would they didn't want you to hang out, so they had these tables, but they were tall, and so you'd stand at these tables, and that was to get you to move. Yeah. And so no chairs, no sitting. So we would wind up just getting our food and going elsewhere and sitting down the dirt.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
And I remember seeing an interview with a firefighter one time. I was still fighting fires then. I was watching some news, and they're trying to interview this guy, and he's trying to cut a steak with a plastic fork and a knife. And I've been there 1,000 times. And the reporter asked him, "So, what are you doing?" "Right now, I'm eating this steak." And that's all. That's all he said. And I was like, "I read you loud and clear. You're tired. You don't want to deal with this." So, and then tear down a fire camp was always you had to check out, and they would inventory your vehicles to make sure you weren't, I suppose, taking a bunch of stuff you weren't supposed to be taking, and to resupply the things that you had used.
Right.
You know, if you broke a couple tools, they would resupply your tools.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, pretty organized places, and always we always went to the bulletin board to see what was happening, and always before you go on the line, and then when you'd get back to see, is it growing still?
Yeah.
How long are we going to be here? So yeah, it was good. It was an interesting thing to be in a fire camp. Porta potties, just lines of them.
Oh yeah.
I remember one time watching an inmate go into one of the porta potties, and these other inmates came over and pushed it over from behind.
Oh,
so there's no getting the door.
No, yeah,
And this guy was screaming and yelling. And all of us, our 20, we just sat there with our plastic knives and forks and just watching.
Yeah, better him than me.
Oh, yeah. He came out with blue hands. And yeah, it was bad.
That's no good.
Yeah, and they're out in the middle of nowhere, and in the open. Usually fire camps are in open areas with no trees. Mm-hmm. And so these porta potties would just heat up. It was bad news. But yeah, so you tried to avoid them if you could, but you couldn't.
Yeah, no. So this was in the 70s and 80s.
70s and 80s, yeah. I did 11 seasons.
Are you still in touch with any of them? Or was it kind of once you were done fighting, you kind of went your own way?
I'm friends on Facebook with a couple of them. There's a few that I still wonder about. Mm-hmm. There's one guy, I think he's probably still fighting fires, but he's probably in the prison system doing it. Yeah, he's a wild child, which is what you need on it.
Yeah.
A little bit on a fire.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're in touch, and then the barracks that. The 20-man barracks is now run by the state parks, and you can actually rent it. And we did, gosh, it's been a long time ago, but we rented it. A bunch of us went back and
Really?
Yeah, we stayed there overnight, me and Herb and a bunch of other guys. Rick Smith, who just passed away here a couple of years ago, great guy, great firefighter, one of the best firefighters, one of the best guys. Went to a lot of concerts with him, hung out with him a lot. Good firefighter. He was a crew supervisor in 1979. We had a lot of fires that year, and yeah, he's a good guy. We all went back to the Lewis and Clark Fire Barracks and rented it for the night. And
how was the nostalgia?
it was, it's not the same.
Well, how much later was it?
How
much later was it that you guys went back?
Gosh, 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been tempted to see if anybody wants to go back and do it again, but I like my own bed.
There you go, then have dinner.
Yeah. When we did our last one, though, Rick Smith's daughter, who now lives in Israel, came and did a fire dance.
Oh, yeah.
It was really cool for a bunch of firefighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the balls of fire.
Yep.
She was good.
Wow.
And yeah, it was good for her to do that for this group of firefighters. And really kind of a interesting story is there was for that reunion was there was an older guy, his name was Crawford, was his last name. We called him the Crawdad behind his back. One of these guys with the mustache, shirt always unbuttoned, and would roll his own cigarettes with one hand while driving down the road in his truck. And guy he was a man's man. And he didn't have TV, so he would read whatever everybody was watching on TV at that time for like a miniseries.
Yeah.
He would go get that book and read that so he could. Yeah, he was just.
along.
Yeah, he's a great guy. But we used to swear Gene would show up on fires, and fires would instantly go. He'd get out of his truck, give it an eyeball, and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys. But about 2 weeks before the reunion, I was actually in Aberdeen, and I saw Gene.
Really?
And and I said, "Hey, we're getting together." And he said, "The old Lewis and Clark Barracks." So yeah, they rent it out now. So well, we'd love to have you come. And he says, "Yeah." So we chatted for quite a while, and then finally he's quite elderly. He was older when I knew him, and he's near retirement when I knew him.
Wow.
And he was living out on the coast, retired. And before we parted ways, he went, "You know what? I'm not going to be able to make that as I think about it. But you tell the boys the Crawdad says hello."
So he knew.
He knew, yeah. Yeah. He was gosh, that guy was. I never knew him to go on any of the big fires in Eastern Washington. I think they kept him local because he was just so experienced and so good.
Wow.
And yeah, he'd get out of his truck. I swear we'd all swear, whole 20 men, and the Morton 20 man. Gene would show up, and we'd be like, "Okay, this is all under control now." Because he'd get out, he'd eyeball it. Had an amazing ability to just get everybody calm.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
You need that.
Yeah, you do. You need those kind of leaders out there, and he was definitely good at it. I remember him eyeballing a fire that was starting to run. He's peeling an apple, leaning across us, and he gives it that look. We didn't have to. He didn't have to say anything. We all went running. Go take care of that. He was just peeling this apple, and then all of a sudden he caught it right away. So yeah, good guy. And one of the good guys. But I am in touch with a few of them on Facebook. I'd like to know where a few of them are. And like I said, one of them I think is probably in the prison, still fighting fires. But he was a good one too. So
Nice.
yeah, it was fun. It was an interesting job to do.
Yeah.
And
Definitely sounds like you're glad you did it.
I am, and a lot of what I think about in life is based on anecdotal things from fires.
Yeah.
And I know that people who've worked for me may get tired of hearing, well, one time, because I'll use an example, one time I was on a fire and this happened and this is what I know they kind of probably get tired of hearing it, but at the same time, they're good analogies. And forest fires are interesting things there, and it's what most people don't think about is that when you see the videos on TV, when you see clips of fires on TV, and you see these bombers dropping, and you see these helicopters, they get all the good video. The people who are on that line, those are just young people, men and women on that line. And one of the things that the technology really hasn't changed. When I see video, I follow a lot on Facebook and YouTube. I follow a lot of wildland fire stuff, and I follow several Facebook sites that are wildland fire sites. The technology really hasn't changed. It's still young people with a shovel, an Adze hoe, and a Pulaski, which is an axe and a hoe, on that line. The bombers have gotten bigger.
Yeah.
I got hit by a World War II bomber in 1977. Thing was cool. B-24 Liberator. Came around a smoke column. They were supposed to have a little spotter plane in front of them telling you that they're coming with a beeper. And I only saw that a few times. This thing came around. I swear its wingtip wasn't further than a couple hundred feet off the ground. Flattened out, bomb bay doors opened, hit us, and was gone in like 3 seconds. And my first thought was, during World War II, we'd all be dead.
Yeah.
Man, he hit us hard, and he was gone. And I remember Dan.
Yeah.
Dan got up and went, he was laughing. Did you see him? He was laughing. He probably was. I didn't see him. I just saw this bomber. And now they've got these jumbo jet things.
Oh, they're massive.
Man, oh man, they're huge. Helicopter drops. I've been dropped on by helicopters. I've been hit by the red chemical borate on fires. That's actually a badge of courage.
Oh, really?
You knew if somebody's got red on them, they've been on it.
They've
been right where it was. And so yeah, you didn't go looking for it getting hit because it was nasty stuff. But, but yeah, you could tell your firefighters when you're at fire camp. You got some red on him. He's been there.
Well, 11 years of doing it. Is it something that you would recommend people do, or is it kind of a?
It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I asked you when you got out of high school if you thought you might like to do that, but you were already.
Yeah, I was like, no.
And the days of the 20-mans are mostly gone. So if it's a high energy, exciting. You do save your money because there's nowhere to spend it.
Right.
And so, and it is a fun, high energy, high voltage job that, you got to be a little bit edgy. You got to be aware. That's the ones you put in the middle of the line where the guys you're just not aware.
Yeah.
You got to be aware. I'd recommend it. I still, my heart still longs to be there when I see good fire video. I still think, I know what it feels like to be right there on that line with those guys, and I'd love to be there with them. But at 68, I know way better than that.
Yeah.
My brain would get my body in trouble. And so, I could probably still figure out how to fight it.
Oh, yeah.
But somebody else would have to do that.
To
do the actual
point.
Yeah, that I could probably figure out. But so it's still young people out there with Pulaskis, shovels, and Adzes, and they are hanging on for dear life at times. And when you see these massive things that are just rolling, they're out in front of them. They're waiting for the opportunity, waiting for it to die out, waiting for it to smack into something that can't burn, like a rock outcropping or roads or anything that'll slow it down. Then you jump on it, and they're out there. And man, you see these massive fires, and just think there's a little tiny guy. He's sitting there,
shovel, doing something.
He's trying his best, just hanging on. So I would recommend it for young people. Yeah, it's a good job if you got a lot of energy and if you like being outdoors.
Okay.
The downtime is a little boring, a lot of training.
Yeah.
And they always had projects for us, like we cleaned campgrounds, or we went cone picking up on the north face of Mount St. Helens, the face that blew out. We actually picked cones on that part of Mount St. Helens. That was one of our summer projects.
Fun.
So, yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah. It was pretty cool stuff, so.
Well, nice. Well, I think that's kind of.
Yep. That's fire.
Most of it, the gist of it.
I could go on for hours and hours,
but
we will cut this off at this point.
Okay.
Thanks for asking the questions, and thanks for letting me share a little bit about my life on the fire line. And
for a decade of fighting.
Living with 20-man fire crew, and there are a lot of stories there. Someday we'll have to tell you about the pillow fight story.
Ah, yes.
20-man fire crew and a pillow fight.
What could go wrong?
We had black eyes and broken noses and split lips the next day. So these weren't traditional fire or pillow fights. So. But anyways, thanks you guys for joining us. We sure appreciate it. Christopher, you've been a great host again and moderator. I sure appreciate that. And
of course.
You guys will catch you on the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Cool.